And welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
I am DJ Ross. I am here to kill chaos.
That makes two of us.
Oh, good.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat that again and again and again? And
I only know one thing. That's that I'm here to kill chaos.
Yep. Oh, God. Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, in case you didn't notice, a wild E3 approaches.
Is that a video game reference?
That was. You like that?
Yeah, pretty good. I've played some video games in my time.
So, happy Nerd Christmas, everyone. E3 is here.
Is E3 just a happy season anymore? I don't know what to think anymore.
It feels, and I think of this lately, especially like when E3 kind of rolls around, and last year was, you get a pass on last year, and this year probably even too.
Right.
A little half-assed, a little disjointed, but it feels increasingly unnecessary to do an E3.
Right. It used to be, I don't want to just be like Mr. Negative about this all the time.
Yeah, right.
But
35 seconds in, I'm like, fuck this thing.
35 seconds, just hang it up. I would like legitimately get super excited for E3. I was just like, oh yeah. All the like news and announcements, video games for an entire week. That's all everybody would talk about online. It was great.
I used to take vacation days for this.
I know. I don't know what to say about that.
I remember me, you, and Paul having a pre-video game hangover, like, what are your goals for the podcast kind of meeting 10 plus years ago. Yeah. And my number one goal was, I want to go to E3 someday.
I remember that. That just lives in my head since then.
And now I can barely be bothered to open the YouTube app on my smart television.
Oh, man. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things, how I react to it now. Like, I almost didn't even realize it was happening this year until people told me, you were like, oh, you ready for the E3 show next week? And I was like, oh, God, it's happening again. But It's just like, I mean, it's been weird the last couple of years because of the pandemic, but also, people keep pulling out of it. Like, Nintendo hasn't really attended for the last few years, even when they were doing a show. Yeah. Sony has stopped doing a thing. And now there's just like announcements year round. So it like you were saying, it feels kind of unnecessary.
That's my take on it. Like, who is thirsty for, video game content these days? Like, isn't that Twitch? Like, Twitch is just 24/7 nonstop, like, brain dump of video game content.
Right. If anything, I need a week where they don't talk about video games. Right. Just like, everybody take a week off. Go dark for a week, please, so I can catch up on some of this other stuff. Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Give me a little more time to track down Chaos so I can kill him.
Yeah. Before we track down Chaos, though, we should mention, though, that our 500th episode of this very podcast is coming up really, really soon. And we would love to hear from the members of our community. Phone lines are open now if you want to leave us a message, ask us a question, just contribute in some meaningful or meaningless way to our episode 500. You can call 682-999-VGH1. You can also text that number and leave us a message there. And you have to do that before June 25th, so not too far away. The clock is ticking.
It is.
Yeah.
Call early, call often.
So yeah, do that. That's my little advertisement for episode 500.
Yeah. I'll do my part. We had a nice little retro intro track on the way in. That was thanks to Minus Baby. Wow, this is going back. We're almost at the end, or at the beginning, I suppose, of our intro music. But hope you enjoyed that. There'll be a little outro on the way out, as it, since that's typically where the outro goes. So please look forward to that. Yeah.
And that Minus Baby track was not specifically from a video game, if I remember correctly, right? It was just sort of video gamey.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Video game inspired.
Correct. Good stuff.
Okay, well, we better talk about E3. I think that's what people are expecting.
That's what it says on the ticket. So yeah, this Final Fantasy thing. Listen, I'm not invested in this at all. I have nothing on the line.
This was the worst.
But that trailer was just atrocious, right?
Was this the most embarrassing trailer they've ever shown? Because
Ugh.
I had a hard time getting through the entire thing. You would think I would be into it.
This is why I'm confused by this, because normally I sort of watch anything Final Fantasy related with a sort of like, is this cool? I can't tell. And then I wait for you to tell me if it's cool or not.
Watch this thing, you're like, oh, this is definitely cool.
This is most assuredly not cool. Yeah, exactly. So this is called Stranger of Paradise. That's not even the right phrase.
Great. Yeah. Off to a great start with this title, which makes you think like, is that a typo? No, that's the actual thing.
Yeah. This was sort of translated from Japanese into, I don't know, Spanish, and then into Inuit, and then to English.
If it had Hideo Kojima's name in front of it, I'd be like, sure. He just does that. But this one, who knows? Don't know quite what they're going for.
Yeah.
Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, just one.
Singular.
Yes. I don't know if that's because they already released a compilation called Final Fantasy Origins on the PS1 back in the day. Mm-hmm. Or it really is just one Origin in this case. I don't know what's going on with this.
I had to be told by an angry person on the internet that that Chaos is the name of a person.
Chaos is so this was like a little bit about this was leaked ahead of time, where they said somebody was making a game that is a revisiting of Final Fantasy 1, which I heard that I was like, well, that's interesting, because, it's been a long time since I think anybody probably played or even thought about Final Fantasy 1. Could be interesting to go back to that.
Which is not really even called Final Fantasy 1, right?
Just Final Fantasy, right.
Yeah.
But then it turns out to be this thing, which is just, it was developed by Ninja Team, or Team Ninja, whatever. Mm-hmm. The Ninja Gaiden guys that are alive. And it just looks like a PS3 game from the time when Japan was trying real hard to figure out how to make games that would appeal to the Western audiences, I guess. PS3/PS2. There was some of that stuff going on back on the PS2, but nobody remembers those games.
In the trailer, starts with them saying, "I've come to kill chaos."
Right.
And then they say that line or some variation on that line 8 times over in this very short trailer.
Yeah, not a good trailer, not good writing.
So leaving sort of no confusion about who you've come to kill.
Yeah, just to the point of him just total cringe.
I thought it was I've come to kill the concept of chaos. I've come to kill chaotic things, but no, there's somebody answers the door and he's like, "Hi, my name is Chaos."
Yeah, I've come to kill that guy.
I've come to kill you. Yeah, yes. And I'm like, oh, it's a name. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of made sense back on the original game. And
sure. It was a long time ago, and that probably seemed kind of edgy and interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think
in the original days.
Well, I mean, not to get too much into it. I think it's cool idea to go back and sort of do Final Fantasy 1 over, because it's been a while.
Yeah.
And, it was an old NES game, so who knows what they could do to sort of flesh that out a little bit. But they just open up by kind of giving away the big reveal, which is that so Chaos was the final boss in that game. Sorry if I'm spoiling Final Fantasy 1 for anybody who's played it. The big twist was you go out on your very first adventure in the game, and you fight this knight Garland, who has kidnapped the princess, and so you beat him, and he goes away for the entire game. And then it turns out at the end there's some time loop business or something, and Garland comes back, but he's just reincarnated as this sort of primal entity, Chaos. And you're like, oh man, that's the guy we fought at the beginning of the game. What's going on? But they just start off with Chaos in this new thing, in Stranger of Paradise. And they know who he is. They're just like, we know Chaos is out there. We gotta go kill him. It feels
going door to door, it feels asking if Chaos lives here.
Right. No, they literally walk up to it and I forgot what the line is. It's because it's awful. But they're just looks like Chaos is waiting for us or something. like, who wrote this?
Turn to camera, wink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the guy is in a t-shirt. And then he has two party members who are like wearing actual Final Fantasy armor, it looks like. But then there's just t-shirt guy with the giant sword, I guess, attached to his t-shirt somehow. Just raring to kill chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the demo is actually kind of fun. I heard it might actually be good.
Oh, I heard it was totally broken, and then that people were having trouble even finishing it.
I mean, yeah, it was broken for a while, but once people got to be able to play it, I heard some positive things about it. Yes. But, okay. Oh man.
Well, cool.
Just like thematically, this could not have been a bigger turnoff, I think.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that I, again, naturally pessimistic about these things, and want to make sure that my negative impression of this thing sort of aligned with you.
Right. No, I think you and me and a lot of people on the internet
sort of sniff this out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I really think there's some interesting stuff they could do with, I guess, a Final Fantasy I remake, if that's what you want to call it. But after watching this, I'm just like, oh, I'll just wait for the next time they decide to go back to Final Fantasy I. Oh man, these are the same guys who made everyone's favorite Metroid Other M. So I mean, that feels like should have been a tip off.
Yeah, and still people continue to allow them to make games.
I don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't even know if it's the same writers, but I think one of the writers was one of the guys who wrote a lot of Final Fantasy 13 and Kingdom Hearts, which, again, depending how you feel about those games, may sort of inform your take on Stranger of Paradise. But I don't know if it's fair to like associate them with the Other M writing team. I don't know who I'm being unfair to now that I've said that.
Yeah. They put it out there. It's just open themselves up to it.
Ugh.
So
anyway.
Speaking of Metroid.
Oh, yeah.
There is we are not getting a sequel to Other M, but we are getting the first new Metroid game in nearly 20 years.
The first new 2D Metroid game?
Yes, that's right. Because otherwise, Other M would be included, and the Prime games. Right. But so yes, you're right. First new 2D Metroid in nearly 20 years.
Yeah. Although we did have 2 remakes of Metroid 2, so that's the thing.
Yeah, that Samus Returns on the 3DS was good. I'll give them that.
I wouldn't go that far, but it did exist.
No? Yeah. Okay. It was a video game.
It had Metroid. It had everybody's favorite character, Metroid.
This new one, this Metroid Dread, is the same developers as Samus Returns, the 3DS game, Mercury Steam.
Right. Which is... I wasn't thrilled, but, it feels natural that they would have them do another one of these.
Yeah, yeah. Presumably they sort of know what they're doing by now.
They know how to make a Metroid game.
Yeah, they know how to make a Metroid and a Castlevania game because they made a bunch of those before too. So, not the best Castlevania games, but they are in fact Castlevania games.
Well, they did have Castlevania on the box. That's how you know.
So it's called Metroid Dread. This surprisingly is coming out this October. Nintendo offered up that the Metroid Prime game that they started developing and then stopped and then restarted from fresh a couple of years ago is still in development, so that'll come someday. But in the meantime, to hold us over is Metroid Dread. And this is a bit of a kind of a resurrection too, because this game, I think, originally was developed as a GBA game once upon a time, and then they were going to put it on the the DS. And then it disappeared. It sort of got canceled and never saw the light of day. So, who would have thought in 2021 that the new Metroid game would be called Metroid Dread and would have some sort of connection and lineage to, over 15 years of development? That's crazy.
That was also very surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because
this is a sequel to Fusion, the Game Boy game, yeah.
I'm really curious to know how much of the original game, or both original games, since it sounds like it's been restarted a couple times, actually made its way into this one. Because when they like did the big title reveal and it said Metroid Dread on the screen, I was like, is it like, are they just calling it that because people sort of knew they were making something called Metroid Dread, or they were like, finally we got Metroid Dread out the door, so here it is. I'm not sure what to make of that, but
Nintendo released a little, like, I think it's 6 minutes long, little documentary on the development history of Metroid Dread, and I caught that today on YouTube, and it's the producer saying that he had the idea for this almost 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
And and that what he wanted to do, they couldn't sort of make run on devices, consoles at that time. So he kind of thought it was long gone until it got resurrected again in the last couple of years.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
What was the big idea? Was it like the big robot chasing you?
I'm not sure specifically what the sort of the ambitious part of this was that could not be captured on a GBA back in the day, but yeah, it does seem like, at least from the trailer and the gameplay footage that we've seen, that in Dread you are constantly sort of being pursued by this kind of unkillable crazy robot who is named Emmy, I guess that's sort of the new wrinkle to this thing, is that you are sort of being pursued by an unstoppable killing machine.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
I mean, that was the thing that was going on in Metroid Fusion, though. So that's what throws me over there. Like, oh, we couldn't make this game. And I'm like, surely it's not because of the invincible pursuer character, because you did make that game.
I don't know.
Maybe they're just like, the character wasn't as articulated as it is in this, or it appears to be in this new one.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure that. Didn't really get into that level of detail in the documentary, but it was only 6 minutes long. They needed more time.
It's a Metroid documentary. They got to keep it short.
But it looks cool. I'm excited about this. I am cautiously optimistic about this. They showed some sort of 3D stuff, which I suspect is cutscenes or intros, but they also showed quite a bit of footage of kind of in-game stuff, which is 3D rendered, but it's sort of a 2D presentation. And it, super acrobatic, bouncing off of walls, blowing up things, lots of weapons and backtracking, I'm sure, inevitably. It's a Metroid game, but it sort of looks like the ones I like the most.
Yeah, I thought it looked really good. It's the first time they've had like an HD 2D Metroid, because like as good as that 3DS one looked, it was still a 3DS game, but I was watching people play this one, and I was like, oh, wow, it actually looks really good. I'm pretty impressed. So that's exciting.
And it's soon. It is almost done cooking. It comes out this October.
Well, just a few more months until everybody starts complaining about Metroid Prime 4 again.
It's nice that there's this little thing to kind of hold us over. I think that the 3DS one from 2.5-3 years ago was supposed to be the thing that held us over, but it turns out we need another holdover.
It's like, how many more Metroid stopgaps do we have to produce until Prime 4 is done?
Find that producer and see how many more Metroid ideas he's got. Let's see if we can shake some more of those out before Prime 4 sees the light of day.
Oh man, well, that was exciting. Finally, Metroid fans got something.
Yeah. And that to me felt like, that moment felt like the reveal of Metroid Dread felt like kind of the old school E3 surprise.
Oh, the big E3 moment, yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we have one more thing for you. And they didn't really even approach it that way. It was, I think, the first 10-15 minutes of the Nintendo presentation was like, oh, by the way, Metroid, guys. And I'm like, this is super exciting. This is not a game I expected. This is not a game that had been sort of leaked even that I was aware of. And here it was. And, like, coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, that was actually, like, a highlight announcement. It was a big surprise.
Yeah. The other fun thing that I thought Nintendo sort of pleasantly surprised me with was the Legend of Zelda Game & Watch.
Oh, yeah. No, that was also good, yeah. I think.
Yeah. This being the 35th anniversary of Legend of Zelda this year, I think a lot of folks were kind of anticipating that Nintendo would do something kind of celebratory for the release. It turns out we're not going to see Breath of the Wild 2 this year. There was some new footage of that at the and the E3 presentation as well continues to look cool and interesting. But this little Legend of Zelda Game & Watch is a cool little device. Again, one of the little kind of credit card sized Game & Watch toys, much like the Super Mario Brothers one from last year. But this one with 4 games on it. It's got the original Legend of Zelda 2, which I believe you're a big fan of, right, DJ?
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
I played that one before Zelda 1.
Oh, interesting. And it has an old Game & Watch game sort of reskinned to include Link. And it includes Link's Awakening, like the entire GBA or Game Boy version of Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
So like just huge bang for your buck on this little $50 toy.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that Mario Game & Watch suddenly looking a little anemic compared to this one.
I know. I'm like, there should be way more Mario games on that by comparison.
You're like, what? It's like a 1 Mario game. We're getting 3 Zelda games.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to have a whole little collection of Game & Watch games with old Nintendo games on them. I think that would be neat.
That's fun.
Yeah, and this is coming out this November, it looks like. And again, they're sticking to that $50 price point for all 4 of these games on a dedicated kind of handheld console. I'm sort of into it. I think it looks like fun.
Yeah. They are still selling those Mario Game & Watches, so it seems like there are no productions or like supply issues, which is nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully that stays true for the Zelda one.
Yes, I agree. I remember scrambling extra hard to find that Mario one, thinking, if I don't get it now, I'll never see it again. And then, I was in Target over the winter, and there were just rows of them in a glass case. I'm like, oh, I didn't have to fight that hard for it, apparently. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'd be cool. And I've never played those old ones. I think I believe I was in a room when my stepbrother played the first Legend of Zelda. I've never played Zelda 2. I have played Link's Awakening.
The remake.
The remake, yeah, not the original. So yeah, it would be cool to at least have an opportunity and a little inspiration to go back and try those old games.
Yeah. The first one's still pretty good. Like, I played it a few years ago, and I thought it held up pretty well. I knew where all of the secrets were, though, so that probably helped. Zelda 2, I mean, if you haven't played Zelda 2, I think it's a great thing to just check out. It's pretty difficult, but so different. I feel like... I think I said this before.
2D.
It's like a side-scrolling action game.
Right.
But we are ripe for or rife or whatever.
I believe rife is the word.
The time is right for a Zelda 2 remake in some style. Not sure what that looks like. But yeah, checking out the original. Pretty good.
Well, we have this, and we have the Skyward Sword remake coming out this summer, and the Breath of the Wild 2 is next year. But Nintendo has sort of gone on the record as saying this is the extent of the Legend of Zelda 35th anniversary sort of celebration.
Right.
So there will not be kind of a year of Mario like there was, for Mario.
No Zelda 35 on the eShop, which is disappointing.
Yeah, that'd be neat. I don't know how you'd do that, but I would play it.
Yeah.
At
least they're upfront about it. Yes,
I appreciate the transparency instead of, getting feisty at the end of the year because there has not been an appropriate level of excitement for Zelda this year. Yeah. So what else? I was especially, I don't know, disappointed, I guess, that there was zero Animal Crossing update that came out of the Nintendo present. I don't know, just they love telling people that game has sold 35 million copies. You would think they would have some sort of plan to get it beyond the 1 year mark.
I mean, they say the same thing about Mario Kart, and when was the last time they released any new stuff for that game?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is true. Mario Kart has sold just a ton of copies, and I think it remains relatively untouched for the last couple of years. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm disappointed. Also, I really felt like this felt like it could have been like a new era of Animal Crossing, and certainly I didn't expect anything completely revolutionary. But for it to just sort of stop after a year, I was like, oh, well, I guess it's just business as usual with Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
A little disappointing.
Yeah, and a lot of people are picking it up new and fresh for the first time today probably, but and they get to sort of experience that first year of stuff all over. Brand new to them, old to me, of course. But so yeah, I don't sort of fault them that, but some of us continue to go back to that well and would like to be entertained with some newness, and it just does not appear to be in the cards.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say about that.
Got that Island Sanctuary to look forward to once Final Fantasy Endwalker comes out in the fall. Just migrate all your little Animal Crossing dudes over to that game.
Okay.
Okay. Oh man, he's doing it.
Got a commitment here from
Get
me
that
on
in
the
writing.
Yeah.
What else? I don't know. I was just sort of like dipping in and out of these the big pressers. Just I don't know if I have the patience to sit through an entire one of these days.
Yeah,
the Square Enix one was painful enough.
I think IGN was doing like these recaps that were like the entire Xbox conference in just 6 minutes, and I'm like, that's how you do it, right there.
Yeah.
One
of the titles that caught my eye though was this one called SacriFire, which I believe it's still in the Kickstarter phase. So immediately I'm a little wary, but the trailer looked cool. It was like a kind of 2D action RPG. It's by a small studio in Poland, and one of the developers was saying that it's heavily influenced by Vagrant Story, which is one of my favorite games. That's an old PS1 dungeon crawler.
There was something you played recently and talked about on the show that was also sort of very kind of evocative of that, right?
Yes. What would that have been?
This context has come up recently. I just can't sort of...
Comes up frequently, as it were.
I can't place the game you were sort of comparing it to. Sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, it might have been Crimson Shroud on the 3DS. Oh, no, I remember what it was. It was that Unsung Story game, which is terrible, but has lots of room for improvement. But anyway, so there's this SacriFire
Sorry to remind
game.
you of that. I apologize.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Would you like to talk about Stranger of Paradise some more?
Absolutely not. So, but this game called SacriFire, they went in into a little detail about the battle system, which is kind of interesting because it sounds like it's action based. Like you can steer your guy around on the battlefield, but then when it comes time to take an action, it pauses, which sounds very Vagrant Story like to me. And then you make some decisions, I guess. They said the gameplay revolves around exploiting enemy weaknesses, whether that's, I don't know if that includes elemental weaknesses or like Vagrant Story famously had like all these different weapon types, and you had like sort of the classic piercing, blunt, and slashing damage, and you need to figure out which enemies those were effective against. And it turned into just an entire nightmare in that game because there were just so many factors you had to juggle. But in this one, they said like they don't want to make it super grindy or just like player unfriendly. So it sounds like you have a weapon that sort of adapts to enemy weaknesses for you to some degree. When I heard that, I was like, wait, well, doesn't that sort of defeat the whole purpose of having those in the first place? But I'm sure they know what they're doing. I'm sure it'll make more sense when it comes out. But kind of got my eye on that one.
Cool.
Looks mildly Octopathy, like Octopath Traveler in terms of the visuals. It's like the 2D style, but it's like the environments are slightly 3D. It's like little dioramas moving around. It's interesting.
I like that aesthetic. I mean, like anything, if you go to the well too often, it starts to look kind of predictable. But yeah, I find it very striking when I see it done well. I
was very worried, like when they first showed Octopath, because I was like, "Oh man, this is haven't been a lot of games that looked like this previously." I felt like it was a little like they were laying it on a little thick because they really dialed up the like tilt shift sort of background blur, and there was like so much bloom lighting everywhere. I was like, oh man, it's like I see where you're going with this.
What they went for was that thing that makes everything kind of look like miniatures, right?
Yeah.
Is that the tilt shift thing?
And it was like very, very left a very strong impression, but it was very difficult for me to look at for long periods of time. But I feel like this is maybe a better version of that. I mean, it's not by the same team. It just feels like it's slightly inspired by sort of the Octopath look. So I feel like, all right, people are starting to get it. They're figuring out how to make this look good. So that was nice.
Nice.
This was not technically an E3 thing, but did you catch that Dragon Quest event a couple weeks ago? I feel like everything.
I did, yes.
This is like all part of E3 season.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's sort of the other kind of weird space that E3 is in now, is that everybody kind of has their own kind of like game show, like video game show.
Right.
Yeah, and there's these weird little buckets. There's like the Guerrilla Collective. There's the Devolver does their thing, which is always kind of a weird adventure. Jeff Keighley has his like Summer of Games and stuff like this. So, like all of these like reveals and announcements kind of go into these weird different sort of buckets now. And I'm like, I can't remember where I saw anything or where it came from. It used to just be sort of Sony, Nintendo, and then eventually Microsoft too. And now it's much more democratic, which is exciting, but also a little harder to track.
Yeah, and it still just contributes to everything just feeling very arbitrary. Like, oh yeah, we're just announcing stuff in the middle of April because nobody else was, so now it's our turn. But they showed off that Dragon Quest 3 thing at the Dragon Quest event, which I thought looked cool, and it also kind of looks like Octopath Traveler, but slightly better to look at. So I think I'm excited for that. I mean, as much as I don't just need remakes of games that I've already played for the rest of my life, that one looked pretty good.
Right. Yeah, I get just filled with anxiety now when I see trailers for, 100-hour RPGs that I know I'm never going to sort of see the end of.
Yeah.
Sort of see the back half of. So yeah, I mean, they showed the trailer for Shin Megami Tensei 5 and during the Nintendo thing, and I was like, looks great. I'll never see the end of that game. There's just not enough hours in the day. And then the one you just said, Dragon Quest. They announced Dragon Quest 12, right?
Oh yeah, that was also the Dragon Quest thing.
And
that's a ways off though.
Oh yeah, I have plenty of time to not finish 11 before that one comes out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just So, I mean, I'm excited that these games exist, and I just wish I had enough hours in my life available to me to see the ends of them sometimes. But it just makes me nervous.
Dragon Quest 3 is on the shorter side.
Is it?
I can't speak for the remake, but if you just went for the original one, I think you can. I mean, you can play an updated version of it on the Switch, I think. It's not that long.
There was a game that was announced last week on Monarch. We were talking about this in our Discord over the weekend, and it's developers from the kind of the Persona series and the Shin Megami Tensei series on a new kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like high school-based horror, turn-based something or other. Very sort of striking visually, but also sort of in the very early stages of production. But I was like, just that pedigree alone, I feel like this is going to be another one of those minimum somewhere in the vicinity of 70 to 100 hours games. Yeah, and I'll never see it.
Yeah.
Yep. So cool. Bring it on, guys, I guess.
just watch somebody's playthrough on YouTube at like 2x speed. And
right.
Take you a mere 50 hours to get through.
A mere 50 hours, yeah.
Do that on a couple of weekends. It's fine. What else was good? There was going back to Square Enix, they spent about 30 seconds announcing this thing called Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. They explained about almost nothing about what these are. They just showed some footage, or what looked like footage from the first 6 Final Fantasy games, along with this new logo that said Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, promising that these would be like, I forget what the exact phrasing was, like pixel perfect updates of these classic games or something like that. And then since then, people have just been like scrubbing through that trailer trying to figure out like, oh, is this new footage? Oh, it looks like it actually is. Like they redid the graphics, but just very slightly. And now people are trying to figure out like, like, how many of these sprites are new? Do we like these new sprites? Who knows what's going on with these things?
But sort of the pixel perfect kind of description, I guess, would indicate they're relatively kind of unmonkeyed with and not significant detours from the original Final Fantasy products.
I mean, it does seem like they're redrawing a lot of the art from the originals, which is interesting. Like I think one of the most curious takes I've seen on it since people have been getting into it is that they're drawing the sprites in a way that sort of mimics how you always envision the original sprites looking. Because like for the last, I don't know, probably 20 plus years, you've not really been able to play one of these games on original hardware unless you had the Super Nintendo or an NES lying around still plugged into a big CRT TV.
Mm-hmm.
So you were probably playing like an emulated version on the like Super NES Classic or wherever, or a Virtual Console or something. And you're getting these just weird unfiltered pixel sprites on a flat screen, which is not really how they were meant to be displayed ever.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of cool comparison screens going around showing like this pixel remaster art compared to like the original sprite art, but run through sort of a CRT filter. So it's like, it's got the screen curvature and the colors are a little washed out because of like the lighting. And you can kind of see the point they're trying to make with like, oh yeah, that does look like the colors in the new one are kind of washed out. But by doing that, they look like sort of this filtered version of these classic sprites, which I think is a very interesting approach. Still, it's not really going to pacify the crowd, which just thinks like, why don't they just dump the ROMs from the first 6 games on the eShop or PlayStation Store or whatever and just make those easier to play?
Yeah.
And I agree, like, they should have done that years ago. But it's also interesting that they're taking this new sort of remaster approach to it and making something new in the process.
Yeah.
So I can't wait until they release a single piece of information about this thing that is not just had to have been fan-sourced out of the trailer that they put out.
I love that dedication, though, of kind of scrubbing through it and pulling screenshots, though. That's that's pretty hardcore.
Can't count on Square Enix to put any effort towards pleasing the fans of the original 6. So I'm glad the community is there.
Yeah. There were a couple indie games shown during it seemed like primarily during the Xbox one, where the trailers that I was sort of like, oh, that looks cool, and there were a lot of these kind of indie games from different sources. There is and we've talked about this game before on the show, and I've played a version of it called 12 Minutes.
Oh yeah, this is coming out.
Yeah, this is coming out. It actually finally has a release date. I feel like this thing has been cooking for ages. I played this at PAX East. God, it's gotta be 5 years ago at this point. Right, yeah. It was like just all these tubes powering it, and the like one of those things from the from a mad scientist lair that has a little arc of electricity that goes up. That was a whole thing, yeah. But no, this is called 12 Minutes. It's kind of a top-down time loop, sort of investigation thing where you are a character who arrives home from work and then quickly sort of finds yourself accused of murdering somebody, and as the cops bust down your door, and it's been brewing for quite a while, and now it's kind of taken on this whole other sort of level of production with voice character work from like Willem Dafoe and Daisy Ridley and stuff like that. So it just sort of felt like this game was never going to see the light of day, and now it comes out in August. I'm super into it, and I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I guess the hook is that you sort of get to replay the same 12 minutes of this person's very bad day over and over again, trying to, make new decisions and try to make it come out right in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that continues to look very, very cool. There was a new game called Somerville that they showed a trailer for. I guess this has maybe been shown a little bit in the past, but this is the first time I remember seeing kind of a lengthy trailer for it. And this is a new game from the co-founder of Playdead, which we were talking about just a few weeks ago. What is Playdead up to? We
did not even realize that they had already announced this thing.
Yeah, they made Inside, they made Limbo, and both games share a sort of very similar kind of structure and aesthetic. Apparently, some folks from that team have spun off into a new development group, and they are making a game called Somerville that, again, has a very similar kind of dark and shadowy kind of aesthetic. In this one, it appears that you're a family, mother, father, child, who are trying to sort of survive, escape, kind of an alien invasion, I guess.
Seems like they're just trying to exist as this invasion has like already happened or like still is happening. It was unclear.
Yeah. Very kind of mysterious trailer, but just very striking kind of visually. And I remember sort of rolling to the end of that thing going, ooh, that looks really cool. And then, putting the pieces together and realizing it was from the team that also made 2 other games that I really like.
Yeah. Interesting, watching that trailer and just getting the sense of like, oh man, here is a family just living through interesting times, which I'm sure we can all relate to the last year or so.
Yeah, a lot of the trailer sort of hinged on kind of the 3 of them falling asleep in front of the television while, chaos happens in the world outside. And again, sort of a very similar experience to, certain days of my life over the past year. So
right. I hope that's the angle they're going for with it. I mean, it was unclear because they also have a lot of scenes where it looks like soldiers are fighting aliens or whatever the invaders are.
And you're sort of exploring and trying to escape from things and sort of running while holding people's hands and dragging them behind you. And so it's definitely a lot to sort of try to suss out from this thing. And I suspect we won't really know what's happening until we actually get our hands on it.
Yeah, I think it would be cool though if it was more just like, what is life like if there was, the alien invasion has already happened, sort of like The Walking Dead. It's like, oh, now there are just zombies around and we have to deal with it occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like every piece of like alien invasion entertainment or zombie entertainment wants to sort of capture that, the initial outbreak and the chaos that sort of ensues. So, what's life like 5 years later? I don't know that entertainment, tends to address that, the sort of mundane existence of life under alien rule,
Yeah.
That could be an interesting story. I'm not sure if that's this story, but in Somerville, it looks cool. I'm intrigued, and certainly given that pedigree, I would play the hell out of anything they make.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that to my attention. I'd like to check that out.
Yeah. The other one this came out of one of the Summer Game Fest drops earlier in the week is called Inscryption. And in my sort of never-ending quest to play every sort of collectible card game / type video game, this appears to be another one of those. Although, again, with a very sort of unique presentation in that everything is... the trailer sort of describes itself as a inky black card game odyssey. And that everything is just kind of pitch black, kind of drawn in this very sort of heavy, shadow-heavy kind of hand. Uh-huh. You're sort of alternating between sort of playing cards and moving pieces on a board against a very sort of shadowy opponent who is sort of glowing eyes and a creepy mask. And there's also sort of puzzles around the room that you're in. So a lot of the trailer is from your sort of perspective sitting at the game table, kind of looking around and trying to sort of suss out what's sort of happening in the shadows around you and solving puzzles and on objects and things in the room. I don't totally get what's happening in this trailer, but again, just such a very sort of appealing and unusual visual inspiration for a video game that I watched the trailer probably 3 times now and trying to figure out like, what is this game? And it still looks super cool to me. And again, it's one of those things where I'm like, sight unseen, I think I would play this just because it looks like a thing that I would like to look at.
Yeah, well, the trailer is very mysterious. Yeah.
And I believe that is this summer as well. I think the release date for that is still sort of kind of a nebulous 2021, but I think I read summer somewhere, but that is called Inscryption. Would recommend at least check out the trailer for that if you're interested.
Yeah. Put links to all these things in the show post afterward.
We could do that too,
check it out. Did you catch any of the Wholesome Direct over the weekend?
I did not, unfortunately. It was long. It was which is
long.
Exciting. That's
it was
great.
Like maybe too long.
There are this many sort of wholesome games to tease, but did not unfortunately make it all the way through the thing. I have to go back and watch kind of the other half of it, but But yeah, no, I love that Wholesome Games exists, that this is just another one of those buckets you can kind of put games in, and that's your sensibility.
I really like that it's taken off and it's become such a movement. Although at the risk of inviting some angry emails, I feel like we're getting to the point where a lot of these games are starting to just blur together to me. Like
some of it does feel a little samey. That was my kind of takeaway from the first half of this that I watched. That I was like, this is the third game about gardening that I think has been in here.
Like, it got to the point. I mean, all the games look fantastic. I probably love all of them. But 2/3 of the way through, they started showing out this, like, yet another game, which is just a very pastel color palette. And they're like, oh, in this game, your entire party is cupcake people. I'm like, oh god, like, really, guys? I don't know. I feel like they're like shoehorning themselves a little bit with this Wholesome Games label, just trying to appeal to this crowd. They end up making stuff that seems very similar to all the other stuff in the category.
Yeah. The thing that I think about, though, when I sort of get these feelings that you and I are expressing, is that not everybody consumes games the way that you and I do.
True,
you know
true.
what I mean?
And I'm not expecting every single person to play all of the games they showed off.
Right.
But, when you chain, like, 20 or 30 of them all together in one of these things, it does.
You start to see patterns, right?
Yeah. With that said, I did see a lot that I'm really interested in. There was this one called Pekoe, which was about running a tea house, or like multiple tea houses.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that's sort of like, it's sort of like a life sim. In this very cute village, and I think there was a talking cat, which was like, okay, that might be going too far. But it sounds like they will actually integrate some sort of like you have to learn about harvesting different types of tea and different ways to brew each type of tea, which I was like, oh, that could be cool. I'm into that, so curious to see how that one turns out. There's another one called Lake, in which you leave your job in the big city to become a postal worker in a small town.
Yes. Yeah, I like the trailer for that. I thought that looked really really intriguing.
Yeah. I think the idea, or one of the ideas behind it, is that it's just such a chill vibes type of game. They said that there are no right or wrong decisions that you can make. There's no like good ending or bad ending, I suppose. It's just like it's whatever you feel like doing. Like, oh, okay, that's an interesting approach to it. I think I like that.
Yeah.
I hope they get into... I mean, I don't know how deep the mail carrier simulation goes in that game. But it would be cool if... I don't know. I was thinking it could be a more approachable version of, like... What was that game I played last year? It was like Autobahn Police Simulator, which was just a nightmare.
This was the same presentation that had the trailer for Witchwood. Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I think that looks really, really cool, and I think that looks sort of like a pretty unique way to go with the cozy or wholesome subgenre, and that it's sort of exploration based. I believe they didn't show any combat or anything like that in the trailer, but you are a witch who is sort of exploring and trying to collect components for spells and things like that. So there's sort of a bit of a collectathon. There's sort of like fables and fairy tales kind of built into it. There's a lot of exploration in different kind of countrysides and wooded areas and biomes and stuff like that. And yeah, you're trying to sort of collect pieces to build spells. So there's a crafting element to it as well. I don't know what you do with the spells once you make them if you're not fighting things, but I suspect people who are smarter than me will figure that out. But that looked cool. Again, I had a very unique presentation and just kind of a cool, interesting way to sort of approach the collectathon and crafting-a-thon thing that sometimes these games kind of turn into.
Yeah. My favorite thing, or actually I guess my favorite two things that they showed in the Direct were these two games, both about hot pots, which brings the grand total of games in the hot pot genre to 4. Which I was just like, was somebody just waiting for them to release, or like somebody else to release a hot pot game? Yeah. And then they just like, oh man, somebody did it and it worked. So now let's just got that idea for that one Hotpot game I've always been meaning to make.
At E3 2022, there will be the Hotpot Games Direct, where it's all Hotpot games.
So.
Yeah,
I hope so. But it was so the trailer for the first one came on called Hotpot for One. I was like, oh, that's funny. Somebody made another Hotpot game. And then 5 minutes later, there was another one. It's like, okay, what is going on? Apparently,
what was the other one called?
The other one was called
I don't know if I caught that. Soup Pot.
Yeah, I know. It's tough, all the Hotpot games, to start to blend together. But so they showed off 2 distinct games about making soup during the Wholesome Direct, which I thought was terrific. I just picked up another one as part of that Palestinian relief bundle going on last week. And even then, I was like, oh, another Hotpot game. And now there are 2 more that I know about. I think one of them is, Hotpot for One? I forget which one of these is out already. But probably going to play a lot of Hotpot games in the near future. Do a little compare and contrast.
Right, absolutely. The definitive Hotpot game.
Yeah, I just think it's hysterical. I mean, cooking games have always been a thing, but these just feel so specific. I can't believe that they're just... Seems like they would have all been in development at the same time.
Yeah. It's like when Hollywood made all those asteroid movies at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. No, it kind of feels like that.
But, Hotpots.
This Hotpot game has Ed Norton in it, though, so you got to go play this one.
Yeah. You really just got to go by who has the stronger cast. Yeah. Which one has Morgan Freeman as the president?
Yeah, right. Morgan Freeman as the Hotpot.
The president of the Hotpots, yeah.
So that was fun. I really hope the trend continues. I really hope that, a couple years from now, Game of the Year is just the definitive Hotpot experience.
Yeah. Jeez, what else? Psychonauts 2, again, it's one of those games I feel like has been kind of cooking for a very long time with no release date in sight. I'm a big fan of the first Psychonauts. Hey, would you say it kind of went away? Yeah, it did, right?
Yeah, it just dropped off out of the news cycle for a long time.
Yeah. The first one came out, it's 15 years, 16 years ago now. So it's not like, the Psychonauts juggernaut is on everybody's mind. So yeah, now that Double Fine is kind of wholly owned by Xbox, it feels like this game is actually going to see the light of day. And it's dated for August 25th now. And they released a new trailer with it. It looks, appropriately kind of batty. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I really liked the first one. It was one of my sort of favorite games at the time. I don't think it's aged exceptionally well, unfortunately. I think I tried to play it maybe 2-3 years ago, and it just was not a fun experience.
I tried to check it out probably around the same time, and I really wasn't into it. But I'm also just not really a big fan of character platformers to begin with.
That's my wheelhouse, man. So right. But yeah, I like sort of the eccentric wackiness and the big cast of characters and stuff like that. And watching the trailer for Psychonauts 2, it reminded me of how much I enjoyed just the writing and the characterizations from the first game. So I'm excited to kind of have the opportunity to dip back into that and re-experience it. And geez, I was hoping they would sort of announce, and by the way, we cleaned up the first Psychonauts and we're going to put it out again or something, just to have a fairly easy way of consuming it again, but perhaps not.
Have they never did they do a remaster or something?
No, I don't know. I think they just sort of kept updating it and putting it on kind of modern consoles, but I don't know that it's been sort of touched or cleaned up in any way.
Oh, well, that's what I meant. I thought they just did a re-release. I don't know.
Right.
I think I ended up playing it on Steam, so may very well have been just the original PC version that came out.
Right. Because it was originally the first Xbox, I think, Xbox and PS2. I think that was sort of the original launch platforms for it.
Sounds right.
But yeah, end of August, Psychonauts 2, finally, a video game I can buy.
Seems unreal.
The other one, there was a couple of trailers that I thought, geez, this wasn't on my radar before, but I think I would pay more attention to it now is, one, Outer Worlds 2. I enjoyed the first Outer Worlds, didn't see the end of it, but I had a good time playing it.
Did people like
the trailer
that game?
for this? What'd you say?
I was trying to remember if people generally liked Outer Worlds.
Yeah, I think I appreciated it. Not enough to sort of finish it, but I don't finish a lot of video games, so that's
Right.
probably not unusual.
So that is meaningless.
Yeah, but I think it was a good, it's in that sort of Fallout kind of thing where, you're building a character and exploring a strange place, and you have a lot of kind of upgradable costumes and people to talk to and shops to go to, and you run errands for everybody. And I think it's some of the developers even from Fallout New Vegas, so there is a connection there.
I think it was like
again,
one of the original Fallout developers, wasn't it?
Okay. I'm not sure, actually. I thought New Vegas, but...
Oh, no, it was... I think that was the studio, right? Obsidian?
Yes, that sounds right. But yeah, Outer Worlds 2, there's a trailer for it that they released during the Xbox presentation. And it's this fun... kind of deconstruction of E3 trailers. It's sort of like, have you seen this? There's a voiceover and he's sort of like, let's talk about how E3 trailers happen. And he's like, we'll start with sort of a mysterious scene, and then you'll see footsteps landing in slow motion. And then you'll meet the protagonist, but you won't actually see his face because the developers haven't landed on a final design for him yet.
Right.
And then Bwom will happen, and the Bwom means something serious is going on in this world, and you're intrigued, right? You're going to pre-order this game, aren't you? I'm probably not doing it justice, but the trailer is hysterical and absolutely needs to be watched regardless of whether or not you're interested in Outer Worlds. I think it's a very smart and funny way to sort of get people like me to talk about your game on their podcast. So I thought that was funny. I would recommend that.
I thought it was funny, but I also just like on some level found it exhausting because it was like exactly the E3 trailer that I hate to watch.
Right. Yeah. I think it was sort of ironic that this was sort of played just minutes before or after the Halo trailer that looked exactly like they were describing and hit all of those little beats. And I was like, oh, somebody either got it or didn't get it and should have spaced these out a little further. So the other one that I thought was fun was the trailer, and this came out, I think, of the Ubisoft event for Far Cry 6. And I'm, in general, not a fan of the Far Cry games.
I thought you liked these.
I like what's the other one? The Crysis games.
Crysis. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But the Far Cry games, I've tried to play them, I think, a couple of times, and I think they're kind of gross. It's a lot of like hiding in the mud and killing animals and to like turn them into wallets and stuff. And I have a moral objection to that. Even in video games, I don't want to kill animals. And it feels like every Far Cry game sort of hinges on you like, murdering leopards and stuff like that. And I'm just not into it. The new one seems to be a bit of a detour, and in it you're sort of playing a revolutionary, a saboteur, if you will, who is trying to sort of take down an evil dictator, and you have a lot of kind of like bespoke and crafted tools at your disposal to, just basically kind of create chaos and lay waste in this little kind of banana republic. It's totally not what I thought the game was about. Every trailer for it up to this point has been sort of focused on the horrible villain and him just being a nasty dictator. And it's the dude from Breaking Bad, the villain, whose name I don't remember.
That's Giancarlo Esposito.
There you go. That is the guy.
I was like, oh yes, the villain from Breaking Bad. That singular guy.
Yeah, well, Breaking Bad had a lot of villains. You're absolutely right. Anyway, I think I didn't know what to expect and maybe had kind of dismissed it from, just years of training myself to ignore Far Cry games. But the trailer for this looked like fun. It looked kind of like lighthearted and kind of jocular. And again, maybe had more of a Just Cause vibe where you're just sort of running around and blowing up things and generally trying to sort of be annoying and, fight back against an evil dictator. And that is always sort of the fun part of the Just Cause games if you don't think about them too much. Just going around and creating chaos and watching things blow up, is generally pretty entertaining if done well. The new trailer for Far Cry 6 kind of looks like that. It gave me that vibe. So I had a moment where I was like, maybe I would play this. Maybe I would try this. Because it's not sort of laying in the mud and waiting to sort of kill a poor animal.
I was still very much in the ignore Far Cry mode. So maybe I will check this one out.
Yeah, at the very least, there's a little trailer. It's a slightly longer trailer, probably 3 or 4 minutes long, where a character is sort of going through kind of like step 1 of how to survive the revolution, step 2, and it's again very sort of tongue-in-cheek and kind of funny, and does not all sort of devolve into deep, dark, serious, oppressive tones, which I feel like the game has really kind of sent that message all the way up to this point. So,
they've already been very clear. There's no political messaging. There's nothing controversial in this one, so you don't have to worry about that at all.
Oh, okay. Thank God. Ubisoft is always there to sort of,
just family-friendly entertainment. Take
the middle road. So yeah, Far Cry 6. Is there anything else that kind of tickled your fancy, DJ?
I don't remember when they announced this, but this kind of snuck out. The new game by Sam Barlow, who did Her Story and Telling Lies a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
These kind of FMV-based detective games. There's a new one called Immortality coming out. I don't remember if they specified, but all they really showed, there was like a trailer. And it's about an actress who was in 3 movies that never came out. And then the actress herself disappeared, apparently. And so the trailer is very mysterious. Doesn't really give away a lot about how the game actually works, or really anything about how the game works, but just based on his last couple of games, I imagine it will involve going through an archive of video footage and trying to decipher clues. Or not really decipher, but just sort of like track down clues and leads based on the footage you're watching. Her Story, one of my favorite games of all time. So
yeah,
that was very strong. I'm super into anything else this guy comes out with.
Cool. And is like the FMV thing, is that kind of his... He will only make games that way forever and ever, or has it just sort of happened to be that way?
That's how it's been for the last 2 or 3. It's not clear what this game actually is or how it will actually work, but that's just based on my experience playing his other stuff. He's really into just like sort of experimental narrative games, though. Like he did the Silent Hill remake on the Wii, which had some of this in it.
Interesting.
One of these games, or one of these days, I will track that down and play that.
It was the Shattered Memories.
Shattered Memories, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that was his pedigree.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Just in Googling this, there's a headline that says that the new game Immortality features writers from Mr. Robot, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
A bunch of impressive credits on this as well.
That is exciting. This is a creepy premise. Cool. I will have to watch the trailer for this too. I missed this one. Neat.
What else is on my list? I think that was about it.
I think that was all I scribbled down a bunch of things that like, ooh, that was a cool trailer. That was a cool trailer. But I think I may have mostly talked about the ones that I think are sort of imminent plays for me.
Yeah.
There was the new trailer for what the hell is it called? The Mario and Rabbids, the new Mario and Rabbids game, which the first one was a pleasant surprise, and was kind of a surprising mashup of Mario and Ubisoft's Rabbids in a turn-based strategy game. And they're making a sequel to it that comes out next year that is set in space. For some reason, you're flying around the universe on a spaceship with Mario and a bunch of Rabbids and getting involved in battles. And it's still somehow turn-based, but you're no longer locked into a grid. It showed kind of the characters kind of running around a playfield.
Yeah, interesting.
Not sort of beholden to kind of moving, a certain number of squares in a turn and stuff like that. So
could be like it's a game, Valkyria Chronicles. You ever play that one?
I've not. No.
Pretty good.
Is that kind of the hook? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like just freeform sort of turn-based strategy, I suppose. Turn-based tactics.
I sort of appreciated the kind of the the starter kit that Mario and Rabbids maybe was, and that it was, I assume for a lot of gamers that was kind of their first attempt at playing a turn-based game, a strategy game in that way, a grid-based game. So, I mean, it's interesting that there is a sequel now that is maybe going to kind of evolve that a little bit and kind of push it a little further and maybe take those gamers with them. I think that's cool too. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the new Mario and Rabbids in space game will be as entertaining as the first one was.
Yeah. One of these days I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
I think it was occupied when the first one came out, but generally got positive reviews.
Yeah. I think a lot of people generally sort of like, what's surprisingly good? This Mario and Rabbids game. Which is better than being
the Rabbids themselves are still kind of a hang up for me. I'm just like, do I want to play a game with these things? And I don't know.
It's a little tough to consume.
We'll see, though. I mean, everybody loves it so much. Maybe we should just give it a chance.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XVI conspicuously absent.
Oh.
They just, I don't know, couldn't squeeze it into that Square Enix thing. They spent too much time showing Guardians of the Galaxy. So, sorry, guys.
Is that Final Fantasy game this year?
I can't imagine it's this year.
Oh, okay.
No. We've got, there was the COVID delays.
Yeah.
We've got Endwalker coming out. Don't think they want that dropping right on top of each other. I think it'll be next year at the earliest.
Right. Well, I mean, for two people who were maybe a little down on the E3 experience, we certainly pulled a few things out of it that we're excited about.
Yeah, or at least, sort of curious about. That's my whole approach to most games these days, though.
Oh, I'm curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like, what if?
So let's wrap this thing up then until next year's E3. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should definitely follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover.
Is there going to be an E3 next year?
Maybe. We'll see.
It's weird. I feel like that was more of a discussion last year when there almost wasn't. I mean, even before that, they're just like, well, should we do another one? And then last year they kind of sort of didn't. And this year it's like, who knows what's going on?
There has to be a reason. I mean, somebody has to be making a lot of money off of E3 things.
I hope so.
Yeah. So it's probably in their vested interest to make sure that there's another one.
Wonder how many years, how far in advance they booked that convention center in LA.
You can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about the episode at VGHangover.com. Join us on Discord. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com as well. We have naturally been talking about E3 releases and sharing trailers that we thought were especially good. So definitely hop in there and join the conversation with us. Friendly reminder that we are coming up quickly on our 500th episode. We would love for you to contribute in some way. You can give us a call at 682-999-VGH1 and leave us a message. And we would love to include it in the show. So make sure you do that before June 25th, please.
Please do that. We want to hear from you.
Yeah. Subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. And help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, please do that. Please tell your friends you're here to kill chaos. We'd like to give special thanks again to Minus Baby for the intro music this week, and also for our retro outro. We've got none other than Ben Prunty, a show favorite, taking us out with one of his tracks. So thank you very much. Head on over to VGHangover.com. Check out the show post where you can get links to their Bandcamps. Listen to both of those tracks and maybe buy an album or two. Maybe kill chaos while you're there. Who knows?
You got to check everywhere. I mean, he could be.
Right, we don't know where he is.
Anywhere. So yeah, you really got to put in the work to find him.
Oh wait, it turns out he was waiting for us
all along. Chaos has been inside you all along. The chaos is coming from inside the house.
Oh, the worst.
We'll be back next week with more chaos wordplay. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. have a good night. Goodbye. See you later.
I'm here to kill chaos.
Yeah, aren't we all?